So why are we here today?
So we're here today because intervention needs to happen. Campus-wide intervention needs to happen. And so what we're doing, what we want to do with RTI is we want to provide interventions for those students who are just falling through the cracks in your classroom, whether it's academically, they just are clueless about what's going on, or behaviorally, they just refuse to be a part of the class and refuse to work. So we want to talk about RTI today.
So I've heard you say RTI several times, but what exactly is RTI?
So it's a systematic plan to help students to be successful academically and behaviorally. It's also designed to close achievement gaps and consider it similar to Abbott.
Okay, so we're trying to help students become more successful and close the achievement gap. Why should we do it though?
Well, there are lots of benefits to integrating the RTI system. Main ones would be that students are equipped with coping skills, they're equipped with social, and this increases their, propensity to have academic success and just life skills. So that's what we're trying to do, is build the total student and build the total man. So it's a great system, and looking forward to implementing it.
Okay, so we're doing this to provide students with skills that they may not already have.
Right.
So how do we do it?
Okay, good. That's a great question. I think the hardest part about implementing RTI is that it is a campus-wide effort. It's another campus-wide effort. But it's true. If you are having students, fail in your class for whatever reason, the committee won't know about it unless you report it. And so there is a game plan. So the first thing before we can intervene in any way is that you have to report the student. And so we have the Google Doc that will be available to you, that we'll have shared it with everyone. And your job as the teacher is you go in, write out the student information, and you'll actually select the kind of interventions that you've already been doing. Now we're not talking 30 or 40 of your 100 students. We're talking about the 1 or 2 per class that are not making it, whether it's their behavior or they're just not getting it academically. So the first step is we have to have teachers report it. Once those interventions are evaluated, looking at 4 to 6 week timeline, and they're not successful still, then you move them to tier 2. And on tier 2, it's again, you go back to the Google Doc, there is a page specifically for tier 2, you'll add that student in there, and then we're gonna start looking for student-specific interventions, not just ones for the general group, but for that student. And that's the place that you're gonna work with the RTI committee looking for suggestions, and you will record those interventions there. Unfortunately, you have to wait another 4 to 6 weeks because we're looking at evaluation, like how is it working? We have to let it sit and see if any changes happen. If changes continue to happen, then we stick with it and we keep pushing forward there. But if after 4 weeks, 6 weeks, nothing has changed, then that student will be moved to the third step through a referral process, which is really just a sheet of paper that you will fill out. And then the committee, we will take it on after that and start going, outside of school means to really kind of invade the student's life.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, the teacher's job is to report the interventions that we're doing in the classroom. And we're reporting it on a Google Doc. After that, we're giving the intervention some time to work, and then we're going to report again if the interventions are working or not. What I'm not understanding is, I've heard you say several times, mention tiers. What exactly are tiers?
Okay, well, RTI has 3 tiers. We'll begin with tier 1. Tier 1 is the everyday universal best practices, the general teaching that we are providing to all of our students. That includes some learning strategies and interventions to address either academic and or behavior concerns. Some of the interventions include welcoming positive climate, hands-on material, seating arrangements, and so forth. Now, if those interventions are not making any changes in the students' behavior and or academic, then for 4 to 6 weeks, then they are moved to tier 2. Tier 2 is a process where about 5 to 10% of our students fall in that category. These are interventions that are more intense, more one-on-one, a small group, reteaching the concept to that student. Mandatory tutoring, we're talking about parent conferences, student-teacher conferences, we're talking about those type of interventions. Again, 4 to 6 weeks of this process. If changes are not happening during this time, then this is when the RTI Tier 3 referral form comes in. As a teacher, you will complete the form, and in that form, you will answer questions such as what interventions have you done, and so forth, and what recommendations do you suggest. Tier 3 is mainly for that 1 to 5% of our student population that nothing has worked. We're talking about Tier 1 interventions do not work for 4 to 6 weeks, Tier 2 did not work, and now we're in Tier 3. This is when the RTI committee evaluates this information and we decide, okay, what can we do for the student? Can we provide a mentor for the student? Do we need to look into counseling therapy sessions? Do we need to look at anger management classes and so forth? So these are interventions that can happen outside of the classroom, outside of the school, but without eliminating the Tier 1, Tier 2 interventions that you will be providing as a teacher.
Okay, so let me just make sure I'm understanding correctly. Tier 1 is what we are already doing in our classrooms. So that all of our students are receiving Tier 1 interventions, correct?
That's correct.
All right, and then Tier 2 is the 5 to 10% of students that are not being successful with the skills that we're providing in the classroom. So that would be more intense interventions like student family conferences and mandatory tutoring. Tier 3 is 1 to 5% of the student population, and those are students that are still not able to be successful with the interventions that are provided on Tier 2. At that point, if Tier 2 interventions are not working, then we'll make a referral to the RTI committee, and from there you guys will provide more intensive interventions at that point. Okay. So this all sounds really good, but what I'm wanting to know is, does it really work? Do you have any examples?
Well, looking at the data from previous years where we have provided some RTI, Tier 3 interventions, I can mention several students that were successful after those interventions were in place. I had 2 students, for example, that were able to graduate on time even though they were missing credits, they had attendance issues, they had anger issues, they had discipline issues, and all these components were really affecting their success. However, when those interventions were put in place, we were able to see a change. And for some, it took until the last semester of their senior year, so we could see the changes.
Mm-hmm.
But for some others, they started when the year began, and now we're seeing that success for those students.
Okay, so I like the idea of RTI, but all of this is very new and the information is kind of overwhelming. So where do I go for help?
So this year we have an awesome team that we put together. Ms. Gary Phillips, Ms. Angela Islas, Ms. Angela Caney, Ms. Angela Sanchez, and myself, Mr. Walker. And so we are here to support teachers. That is our main goal, to support teachers with struggling students. And so what we're going to do, we meet once a week, but in addition to that, to provide support to teachers and additional training, we will be having once a month after school in the counseling center until 4:20. We will be having just a time where they can come and ask questions and get more information about the RTI process. And starting tomorrow, November 5th, Thursday, after school, we will start this process. And so counseling center, 4:20 p.m. until 4:20 p.m. Teachers will be able to come and get that additional support. So if If you need anything, you contact us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, all of this sounds really good to me. We're helping our students and teachers are receiving support at the same time. So I'm in. What do I need to do next?
So what we want to do next is actually go through and add someone into the Google Doc. So the Google Doc is going to be accessible through your OneDrive. So in order to find it, you've got to go to your OneDrive through Office 365. There's going to be a link. Once you click in there, it's on the left side. It's going to say shared with me, and that's going to be anything that anyone has shared with you. There's going to be an RTI folder in there. This is where we're going to post any resources about suggestions for Tier 1, Tier 2, interventions if you need more ideas. And this is also where the Google Doc is going to be. Once you open up the Google Doc, it's going to be pretty easy to follow. We're asking some basic information about the student so that we can track them. But the most important part is to use the drop-down boxes to add in the interventions that you're doing. And you don't have to add like 100 of them. Just the ones you're using on a daily basis or a weekly basis. And then there's going to be a box where it asks for your name. And we really do want your name to be there. And then what's going to help is when teachers get in there and they need to add a student and maybe they discover that student is already on the list, then they can go through and add their name next to the previous teacher. And then that's going to help the committee see, is this student having trouble in English and math? And what are the interventions? Are they doing similar interventions, or what is going on, and who do we need to contact to support them more? So the first step is to get into the Google Doc and actually add somebody.
Right.
Done.